forget, if you are enjoying these videos, please drop a like on them, drop me a comment, and then also don't forget to subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I really appreciate all your support. And finally, let's get into the vlog. 10-10 at Parks in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. Can I come back and book a winning session? Let's find out. So there was a couple hands where I didn't have my phone out or ready, but they were pretty big hands, so I need to fill you in. The first one was Ace-7 of clubs. I opened in an earlier position. We had a call in late position, and then both of the blinds came along in this hand. We are 4 ways to the flop, 7-4 jack with 2 clubs. Now, I'm only out of position to 1 player, but I decided to check and keep the pot small because I know with such a strong draw here, I'm not bet folding. And I just kind of sat down. I wasn't really, ready to get too loose. So to be completely honest, that did come into my thoughts, which I don't know that it really should. Like, oh, I just sat down, like strategically, how does that fit in? But anyway, we decided to checks around on the flop. And then the turn brings an 8 of clubs. So that's beautiful. We love it. We made our nut flush. And the small blind in this hand leads out for $60. And we have a decision here. Do we just call or do we raise? And raise, I'm not raising enough on these turns. I think I should be. I'm kind of projecting a little bit, thinking that, whoa, that looks super strong. But again, I think with live poker, people are making more calling mistakes than hero folds, so I need to reprogram that. But in this hand, we did end up calling here and setting the trap. So we go heads up to the river, and the river is an 8, which pairs the board. I'm not overly concerned about this player having a full house. I definitely think I have the best hand, and they check to me, and then I decide to bet $200 here. Kind of making it look a little bit bluffy. Maybe I checked back with the ace of clubs on the flop and ace of clubs with a queen. And then I just call to hit a club on the turn. And then he checks. It bricks out. All the draws brick out. Straight draws, flush draws brick out. Unless I turned it, of course. And he checks, and I decide to go with a polarized bet sizing. I wanted to go big. He takes a minute. He thinks for a while. There's no history or anything like that. And he does decide to eventually call. And we win the hand. And he says, nice hand. So I guess he had a jack X. He was bluff catching. So we chose the right sizing versus this player, who seemed like they were a competent player, just vibes and stuff. So yes, that was a nice hand to start off. And here we have a hand with 7-6 of clubs. And yes, obviously, I'm here. I missed the video. Go figure. Every time I didn't have my phone up, hands happen. It's so weird how that works. But anyway, we had 7-6 of spades. We over-limped in a middle position. The button makes it 60, and both of us end up calling and going to a flop. The flop is King 9-6. King of spades, 6 of spades. So we have flopped a flush draw and an open-ended draw. I'm okay. Do I start piling chips into the middle on this flop? And I'm not sure I want to. This is a tournament thing, maybe 30, 40 blinds. I think I want to get it in here. But in a cash game, around 100 big blinds deep, I'm not sure if we just try to get it all in on the flop and then run out our equity. To be completely honest, I'm not sure. It doesn't feel like that's the thing to do in cash games, to just all right, pile in chips and let's go for it. So I decided to check here, and then the pre-flop raiser makes it 70. The other limper folds, so it's heads up to me. Definitely not folding here. So I just decided to call the 70, and we go to the turn. The turn is a beautiful 5 of clubs. So we have the nuts. We have the stone nuts right now. Nothing beats us. And then we check, and our opponent bets $320. It's a big bet. And at this point, man, I had to sit and think okay, do I just pump chips in the middle now? Or do I call and hope they're bluffing? And then, decide on the river. And I played with this guy actually in the last 10-10 Parks vlog that I had posted. And it's very borderline with this player. It seemed like a casual player but like he knew what was going on. So I actually think he might have been a good player who kind of understood his image. It was like very splashy, but you know, when they make hands and stuff like that, it like all works out. Like it feels like it was one of those players who either wins big or like loses big. So I thought that they were capable, is what I'm getting at here. And again here, though, now, I end up just calling this 320, but man, I should be raising these spots. I'm too, like, call-y here, thinking people are going to continue to bluff, like, tournament stuff. I think I just need to be pumping up these pots and see who can make these big folds. Because I know the majority of people are not making big folds, they're just making the calls and going from there. Anyway, we just called the 320, and then we go to the river. The river comes a 5 of spades, so we make our flush and the board pairs. I kind of just wanted the river to blank out. That would have been friggin' amazing. But now we have a decision, and given the fact that we called on the turn because we thought this player was capable of bluffing, we need to continue that line. And I checked the river again, and then our opponent, fairly quickly, goes all in. And I'm like, dang, man, this is like what I set up for. I have like 850 behind at this point. The pot is 320, 320, 640. It's more than what I have in my stack. And this is kind of like what we wanted to happen when we just check call turn, is somebody to go all in and hopefully be bluffing, right? But the flush came in and the board paired. What are they going to be bluffing with? And I took my time here. I thought about it. And then I ended up making the call and losing to kings full. They had pocket kings, so they filled up on the river. They had a massive hand on the turn and flop, obviously, and we just got destroyed on the river. And I put a lot of eggs into this guy's capable of bluffing. It kind of, in my dream world, worked out the way I wanted it to, but maybe, again, man, I'm just giving people credit for thinking and being up here when they're just not. So we busted that, bought back in for 1,000, and we continue. We peek down at a king, jack of spades, and we raise it up in early position to 30 bucks. And everybody, even the dealer wanted to call in this hand. Everybody basically comes into this pot, 6 to the flop, including the blinds. The flop comes queen 8-6, all spades. This is not the first time in a 10-10 game at Parks that we have flopped a flush in a huge multi-way pot. Actually, our first attempt, we ended up doing the same thing with an ace high, with 7 people in the pot in our first Parks 10-10 vlog. But we decided to continue here for 60 bucks on the flop, thinking that there are a bunch of draws that could call. Flop, queen 8-6.
Oh,
there are straight draws, single card flush draw. The ace of spades could be out there. So we are heads up to the turn versus the small blind. The turn is a blank 9. Checks to me, and I'm just going to continue value betting. We're really hoping they have jack 10, 7-10, something like that. We throw out a bet of 250 bucks. And the small blind in this hand, who I did not have any sort of a read on, thinks through their decision, and eventually they find the call. And then we are going heads up to the river. And the river is a king of clubs. Checks to me. And at this point, I think my opponent has to have something. The king on the river is not great when they have queen X. They could still have some 2-pair. But ultimately, I am just trying to get max value out of my hand in this situation. So given the size of the pot, I decided to bet 800 bucks. And my opponent definitely thinks for a minute here, so I was like, please, please call. I haven't shown down any hands yet, except that one where I had it. So I'm like, please, please call here. There's not too much information on me at the time of this hand, And the only bad thing about the king on the river is maybe it discourages a queen from calling. I don't think that if they have a 2-pair hand or they happen to have the jack 10 that they're going to be able to fold to this bet, but dealer spreads out my bets, my opponent folds, and we do pick up a nice pot here, even though we did not get paid off on the river, and now we are back up to 1640. We're in the small blind and we look down at queen 10 offsuit. There is a raise in an earlier position and there's a bunch of calls. I decided to call in the small blind and we go 7 to the flop for 30 bucks. Ladies and gentlemen, the flop comes king 9 jack. We have flopped the butters. I am going to just lead out and start building a pot here. I lead out for 60 bucks. And the big blind to my left calls and everyone else folds. So we are heads up to the turn. The turn comes a blank 7. So no flush draws, nothing has come in. We still have the absolute nuts. And I decide to size up here a bit to 220 bucks. And definitely going for max value. The player to my left had just sat down, and it seems like he was one of those casual players that, you know, maybe has a business or something, comes around, likes to play poker. So it felt like that was just the vibe. So I'm just like straight value betting here the entire time. So we bet the 220. He calls fairly quickly, and the river comes a queen. And I'm like, are you kidding me, man? Why do like 2 card straights always get counterfeited to like 1 card straight so much? Strongly disliked it. I think for a minute though, and I'm putting out another sizable bet here. We decide to bet 640. Which was a decent amount of his chips, and my chips, of course, at the time. He actually had like a 1K chip as well, so actually he still had a good amount of chips. He could have made this call pretty comfortably. And it doesn't take him long. He makes the call and shows 8-10, man. He has 8-10. He had turned a straight, and then the queen on the river counterfeited me from winning a massive, massive pot, man. This was super frustrating. This was very, very frustrating, man, to just chop this one. All right, we have a hand here with 3-4 suited. There was a raise in an earlier position. There was 2 calls. And I decided to get a little cheeky on the button and enter with 3-4 suited. I was feeling myself. There was a new casual player to the table who seemed really, really splashy. I wanted to play pots with them. So, and there wasn't a lot of like re-raising at this point. It was like 30 call. So there wasn't a high % chance it was going to get re-raised behind us. So I decided to play the button with 3-4 suited, and we go to a flop. The flop comes ace queen 3 with 1 spade, the ace of spades. There's a continuation bet of 40 bucks on the flop. The casual player to my right that I was talking about called as well, and with the backdoor spades and the backdoor straight draw in the bottom pair, I decided to come along on the button again, so I called the 40 bucks. The turn is a blank 4, and both of the players check to me. I'm like, all right, sick. You know, we have 2 pair. We're going to start value betting here. I decided to bet 250 bucks here, and the player who I wanted to be in this pot calls. So this is perfect right now. We definitely assume that we have the best hand. So we go to the river, and the river is a 5. So now there is 1 to a straight out there. He just needs to have a 2, and then he has the wheel. And checks to me on the river. This is beautiful. Right now, I think it might be a thin value bet to bet my bottomish 2 pair 3-4 on ace 3-4 5 queen. So there's still better 2 pairs than me out there. There's a straight out there. But I am up against the player that was the initial reason I got into this pot. And I have 2 pair. I don't think that they're going to be capable of folding 1 pair hands. So I make a thin value bet. I bet 300 bucks on the river. All right, the turn bet was 250. You know, 300 isn't big. 1 pair hands can feel comfortable calling. I really liked it. And then they make it 600 bucks. He like min clicks me. And this like doesn't happen. I'm like, what does this mean? I'm like, can this ever be a bluff? Like, it's such a small price. Like, this is very, like, odd to me. I just don't come across this often. One thing that I'm mainly leaning on is that this is a casual player, it seems like. So they're just not going to be making this as a bluff. This would be very like high level, sick, cool bluff. So, I mean, I think for a while, and I'm like, dang, man, why did I bet this friggin' river and put myself in this spot? But I did. They went with that. I'm like, whatever, man, like, fold. And I wasn't sure about it. It's out of my mind for a while, but I will tell you later on in the session, I saw them pull that exact same move to somebody else. The other player called, though, and he was bluffing. So, in this hand, we look down at the ace-8 of spades. And at this point, I have had quite a few small pots just not go my way. I honestly feel like I was starting to get really bleedy at this point, and I knew I wasn't rebuying, so I was just looking to play a big pot when I could. We raised to 30 bucks in the cutoff, the button in the big blind call. The flop comes ace, queen, 6 with 2 hearts.
40.
I continuation bet for 40 bucks. I get a call and a fold. So we are heads up. And on the turn is an 8 of hearts. So we now have 2 pair, but the flush did come in. So it goes check, check. And then on the river blank, I decide to check. And my opponent bets 120 bucks. And I call, of course, with my 2 pair as played. And I end up losing to 4-7 of hearts. And this was to the casual player who had actually switched chairs here. And they end up getting me with the check and the river bet. All right, everyone. So over 2 in these 10-10 trips to go to parks and, you know, shot take a little bit. Minus 2K on this cash session. It is what it is. You know what I mean? I think I made some good plays. I think I made some bad plays. We had some unfortunate spots and some big pots, and that's just the way it goes. But, you know, I had fun until we lost and stuff like that. But there's also a big point that I want to talk about here. And I'm saying it a lot for myself to remind myself, because my girlfriend Hannah and I actually talked about this a bit afterwards. But I got to a point where I knew I wasn't reloading. I was just shot taking and, you know, 1K, 1K, boom, that was it. But then I got to a point where I was at like 400 or 500 bucks and I was just ready to double or bust. And there's a flaw. There's something very not optimal about that mindset. And since I've always done this in cash games, even whether it's 10-10, 2-5, 1-3, whatever, like when I get down short and I'm kind of know I'm just done playing and I'm not like planning to reload for whatever reason, if it's money, if it's I'm not feeling like it anymore, I just feel like I'm starting to play bad, I get down to like a spot where I'm like shorter and I'm just like wanting to gamble to double or bust and just be done with it. It's almost like it's a weird kind of like when I overeat. It's like I don't like just leaving a little bit of leftovers on my plate or something. I was raised to, you know, don't waste any food. You know, there's kids who don't have food and everything. So there's this weird thing in my brain that's programmed and I'm trying to like work through. The conversation that Hannah and I had was very helpful, but she's like, well, you could have just like walked away with 200-300 bucks, 500 bucks, whatever I had before I started to get into that mode. And my brain just didn't even compute it. It's like no leftovers. So yeah, that was very interesting, and I kind of wanted to communicate that because I can't be the only one that does that, am I right? Like, we can just walk away, and you know, immediately once we feel like we're playing bad, we're losing, whatever, we don't have to like clean our plate off. And it's a weird thing in my brain I need to rework, but it was definitely feels like a big mistake to have done that. But yeah. So another interesting vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch up with you later. Peace. Hey everybody, thanks for making it to the end of my video. No one does that, do they? All right, look, I respond to comments, so please leave a comment below the description and let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, check out some of my last videos here, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button here. All right, my name is Drew. Peace out. Catch up with you later.